Hello lovely viewers, and welcome back to the Bold and the Beautiful News official YouTube channel, your top destination for the most explosive CBS soap updates. Make sure to smash that subscribe button and give this video a huge thumbs up. The morgue was cold, unforgiving, sterile. The echo of their footsteps bounced off the lifeless tiled walls as Steffy Forrester clutched Finn's arm, each step heavier than the last. Her heart pounded in her chest like it wanted to escape before she saw what they were about to see. Finn's breath came in short bursts as the coroner led them to the final chamber, the one where unidentified bodies waited for a name. Foreclosure. Neither of them wanted to be here. But the call had come, and the voice on the other end had shattered their world. There had been an accident on the outskirts of Los Angeles. The victim had no ID. But the description, the hair, the bracelet, the tattoo, it had all matched someone they loved. Just prepare yourselves, the coroner said gently, sliding open the drawer. Finn stared at the pale, lifeless face. He gasped, stumbling back. Steffy let out a sound between a sob and a scream, collapsing to her knees. No, she whispered. No, it can't be her. Tears spilled down Finn's face as he reached out, brushing a strand of blood-matted hair away from the forehead of the woman they never expected to lose. She was just with us, she was at the house. We talked about going to Paris. His voice cracked. The body on the table was Luna Nozawa. Or at least, it looked like her. Baptism begins. What followed was more than grief. It was a baptism, not in water, but in anguish, betrayal, and fury. In the hours that followed, the air at Forrester Creations grew thick with shock. Thomas stood frozen as Steffy burst into the CEO office, mascara streaking her cheeks, her blouse still stained with tears. She's dead, Steffy choked out. Luna is dead, Thomas. Thomas's face crumpled. No, she can't be. We just had dinner, she said she'd see me today. There has to be a mistake. Finn walked in behind Steffy, solemn and shaking. There was an accident. A hit and run. The body matched. They're doing DNA confirmation, but everything points to her. I'm sorry. Hope dropped the sketches in her hands. Brooke clutched her chest. RJ nearly fainted. It was the kind of pain no one could script. And yet, somewhere, behind the tears and horror, there was something else. Doubt. Encouraging words. But amidst the devastation, hearts reached for hope. Lee Finnegan pulled her son aside and whispered through her own sadness. Don't trust everything you see. Not in this town. People lie. Identities change. We've seen death faked before, Finn. Luna was smart, too smart to go like this. Something doesn't feel right. Steffy, wrapped in a blanket and surrounded by support, whispered to Thomas, she talked about someone following her. She said she felt watched. What if this wasn't an accident? Hope nodded through tears. She was scared, wasn't she? Right before this, something happened. I could see it in her eyes. It wasn't just mourning now, it was suspicion. And then came the threats. Angry threats. When Bill Spencer arrived at the morgue, his rage filled the room. I want security footage, phone records, everything, he barked at Detective Baker. If someone did this to Luna, I'll make sure they disappear. RJ, trembling with grief, slammed his fist on the table in Ridge's office. You think this was an accident? Luna wouldn't walk alone on that highway at midnight. She was set up. Across town, Poppy Nozawa sat silent, her hands trembling as she stared at her phone. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of texts. None answered. She rocked slowly, whispering her daughter's name. But then, she opened her email. One message. Sent hours after Luna's supposed death. Untraceable. Subject line, Mom, help me. The investigation begins. The baptism had now fully transformed, from a tragedy into a mission. Finn and Steffy poured themselves into the investigation. Lee and Bill joined forces, contacting private investigators. Even Ridge and Eric used their connections. Everyone had a stake. The toxicology report raised red flags. Luna had been drugged. There was fentanyl in her system, Finn said, pacing. Not enough to kill, but enough to disorient her. She wouldn't have known where she was going. More shocking, the blood type didn't match Luna's known records. That's when the questions began to spiral. Could it be a frame-up? Thomas and Hope found Luna's scarf at Il Giardino, a place she hadn't visited in weeks. A bartender swore he saw her, but the timestamp was after her supposed death. Then RJ's phone rang. Unknown number. A single message. She's not dead. Don't stop digging. The baptism wasn't over, it was evolving. Into war. Back from the dead? 10 days after the accident, when the DNA results were still pending, Finn received a call from a restricted number. He answered. The voice whispered, "Don't believe what they showed you. I'm alive. They want you to stop searching." Who is this? Luna? That night, Steffi woke up to find an envelope slid under her door. Inside was a photo. A grainy image of a girl, Luna, tied up in a dark room. She's alive, Steffi gasped. They faked her death to hide her. The real culprit. Following the money trail led them to a shocking suspect, Electra, Luna's old friend from design school. Jealous. Unhinged. And obsessed with Will Spencer, the same man Luna had secretly been texting. She always stole everything from me, Electra screamed as police raided her apartment. Now she knows what it's like to be erased. Luna had been kidnapped. Her body double, a girl Electra met in rehab, was killed in her place. All to cover Electra's tracks. The true baptism. Finn and Steffi were the ones who found Luna. Chained in a remote cabin near Big Bear. Beaten, bruised, but alive. When they saw her again, saw the real Luna, the tears flowed harder than before. This time, with relief. You came for me, Luna sobbed. We never stopped, Steffi whispered. You're safe now. Electra was arrested. The fake body was buried under the name Jane Doe. And Luna's return was heralded like a miracle. At her welcome back gathering, Ridge raised a glass. To truth. To family. And to fighting for the ones we love, even when the world tells us they're gone. But not all wounds healed. RJ felt betrayed. Luna never told him about Electra. Hope and Thomas questioned how much darkness lingered inside the fashion world. And Bill, now obsessed with surveillance, swore to never let another threat touch his family again. And Luna? She sat alone, looking out at the ocean, whispering to the wind, I came back from the dead. But part of me stayed there. At Bill's place, the nanny changes Liam's dressing and tells Bill that he's doing remarkably well. Bill goes on about how thankful he's for Buckingham and the medical platoon. He can't indeed comprehend what's gone on. He tells Liam his sole focus needs to be on surviving. Bill gets a textbook and asks his son to get some rest. He's going to have visitors. Steffi, Finn, and Hope arrive and question Bill about the procedure. Bill shrugs that it got results. Finn pouts and Hope says, we'd like to see him now. Bill warns he's still weak from the procedure. Finn asks why he didn't consult him. Bill says Grace told him time was of the substance, so they went for it. Bill leads the callers in to see Liam, who has his eyes closed. The nanny shows Finn the figures. He can't get over how well Liam's is doing so soon. The nanny exits and Finn questions Bill, it's only been a couple of hours, right? He asks what the surgery was, exactly. They were told it was inoperable. Steffi says treatments could have bought him further time, but there was no cure. Bill explains Grace set up someone from out of the country doing this experimental procedure. Finn asks the name of the croaker. Bill can't flash back, it was so stressful. They had to do it in the clinic because the sanitarium wouldn't have approved it. It was a fully professional experience, he says. I suppose they got the entire mass. They'll know when Grace gets the final MRI results. Finn is blown away that he might actually survive. Did they give Bill anything to read? Bill says no, and it doesn't matter. The only thing that signified was saving his son's life. Finn thinks Liam should be recovering at the sanitarium. Bill says they're all decked out there with everything they need. Finn wonders why Grace didn't consult him. Bill says, he's not your case. There wasn't time to weigh out pros and cons. Finn is just happy it went well. Bill has to believe the MRI results will be what they're hoping for. Hope tells Liam that she and Steffy are there for him. Steffy tells him how stalwart he is. You try and stay with us and your little girls. Liam awakens and they express their love. Taylor, Brooke and Ridge unite. At Forrester, Ridge and Taylor go on about how relieved they're that Steffy is safe. They're embracing when Brooke comes by and asks about Steffy. Ridge says she's shaken, but covers well. Taylor remarks on the inviting sense of stress. Ridge declares that Luna won't be a problem presently. Taylor is relieved that the solicitude is gone, but wishes Luna had gotten help rather of dying. They'll always be thankful to Liam for saving Steffy's life. They go over Liam fighting to survive the firing only to be gone in a couple of months. Taylor says he'll make recollections with the girls. Brooke says it breaks her heart what he's going through. Taylor laments that Kelly and Beth have no idea how soon their world will change. Taylor asks Ridge if they should defer their Italy trip. What if commodity happens while they're down? Brooke frowns, what if we're half around the world when Liam leaves us? Ridge doesn't suppose they should cancel yet. Brooke shoots him a cautious look. They agree if it looks bad they'll do what's stylish for the family. Taylor declares that they'll have to unite to help their daughters through this and to help Beth and Kelly too. Brooke nods, we will. Katie and will cry over Liam. In the design office, Electa and will go over how crazy Luna went. Will's just glad she's gone. Electra says it's because of his family Liam's frippery. Katie enters as they talk about Liam being willing to immolate himself for Steffy. Now he's facing commodity he wouldn't survive. Katie sighs, we're still going to lose him. Katie addresses about how devastated Liam must be mentally. Will expedience he doesn't concentrate on taking a life he's a idol. Katie laments that he's being awarded for his heroism by facing a death judgment. Will can't understand why Liam didn't tell anyone about his brain excrescence. Katie can't condemn him no bone. Wants to be ate. She's been on the entering end of that. He wanted to shield his little girls from the Verity as long as he could. Katie tears up over Liam's impending death and what he must be feeling. Will gets choked up hoping Liam can ever beat this. He's a fighter. It's his big family and he's not ready to lose him. Katie holds Will. I'm so sorry. Liam squints, where am I? Bill reminds him they came back to his house after the surgery. Hope tells him they heard about his procedure with Dr. Buckingham. There's eventually news to be hopeful about. Steffy says, we can't lose you. Liam looks at Bill, who gets a textbook from Dr. Buckingham about the MRI. He shakes his head. Finn asks, what did she say? Bill tells them the checkup is clean. The excrescence is gone. 100 removed with good perimeters. They each well up with gashes. Finn declares that this is unthinkable that they pulled this off. Steffy cries, Liam, you're going to live. Hope says he'll get to be around his daughters for a long, long time. It's truly a phenomenon. Finn says medical history was made moment. He still looks befuddled. The soft beep of medical monitors was the only thing breaking the solemn hush inside the Spencer Estates guest wing, where Liam Spencer lay unconscious but stable, wrapped in sterile bandages and quiet resolve after what could only be described as the most baffling and miraculous recovery in recent memory, and Bill Spencer stood rooted near the door, arms crossed and jaw clenched, the stoic father barely holding back a wave of emotion as he watched the nurse carefully change Liam's dressing. And remark that his condition was remarkably well for someone who'd had brain surgery just hours earlier, and though her words should have brought relief, they only deepened the unease curling in Bill's gut, because no matter how much he wanted to believe in miracles, something about this all felt too fast, too clean, too impossible, and yet he nodded graciously and muttered a reverent, "Thank God for Grace Buckingham and the team she brought in," though inwardly he knew he didn't even remember the name of the foreign doctor Grace had rushed in with, only that the clinic had smelled of alcohol and urgency, and that he'd signed paperwork he hadn't read in a language he didn't understand, because when you think your son's about to die, you do anything to stop it, and Bill had done just that, pouring his fortune and faith into the hands of a desperate woman who said she could save Liam with one experimental procedure, and as he turned to Liam's bed and whispered, "You just focus on surviving, son, let me handle everything else," his phone buzzed, and he glanced down to see a cryptic text from Grace, "They're coming. Tell them what they need to hear," which made Bill's pulse race as footsteps echoed down the hallway, and seconds later, Steffy Forrester, Hope Logan, and John Finnegan appeared at the door, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and fury, concern and disbelief, and Bill barely had time to greet them before the questions flew like daggers. "What happened? Where was the surgery done? Why didn't you tell us?" And Bill held up his hands like a man under siege, muttering, "It got results, didn't it?" But Finn wasn't buying it, stepping forward with clenched fists and a dark frown as he asked why he hadn't been consulted on his own brother-in-law's brain tumor, and Bill, defensive, snapped that Grace told him there was no time, that it was either act immediately or lose Liam forever, and that was a risk he wasn't going to take, not when a father's love overrules protocols and second opinions, and while Steffi crossed her arms with a glare sharp enough to pierce stone and Hope's lips trembled with emotion, it was Finn's icy tone that cut the deepest as he asked what, exactly, the surgery was and who this shadowy surgeon was, and Bill, visibly flustered, admitted that the hospital wouldn't approve it, so Grace had found someone from out of the country, a pioneer in his field, she claimed, and they'd set up shop in a private clinic with full discretion, and yes, he had no literature, no records, no paperwork to show them, but the man's hands were steady, his tools state-of-the-art, and the only thing that mattered was that Liam had survived, and with that, Bill stepped aside and led them into the room, and for a beat, all was still as they stared at Liam, his chest rising and falling, his face pale but peaceful, and Finn approached the machines, asking the nurse to show him the vitals, and as she displayed the numbers, even Finn had to admit they were stunning, almost too good to be true. And when she quietly exited the room, he turned to Bill again, voice low and suspicious, "It's only been a couple of hours, how is this even possible?" and again asked, what exactly was removed, because they'd been told the tumor was inoperable, lodged too deep within the cerebral tissue to cut out safely, and Steffi reminded them all that the original prognosis offered only limited time, not a cure, and Bill, digging deep for composure, insisted that Grace had found someone capable of doing what no other doctor dared, someone who believed the tumor could be extracted if done quickly, precisely, and off record, and Finn, still stunned, asked the surgeon's name, but Bill shook his head helplessly, claiming the whole thing had been a whirlwind blur, too chaotic to absorb, and anyway, what mattered now was that the entire mass had been removed, or so they hoped once Grace delivered the final MRI results, and though Finn's scientific mind reeled at the idea, he couldn't deny the numbers in front of him, though that only raised more alarms. How could Liam be this alert, this stable, mere hours after surgery? And then Bill bristled at Finn's suggestion that Liam should be recovering at a hospital, insisting the mansion was outfitted with everything he needed, every machine, every drug, every contingency, and that Finn's concern was misplaced since Liam wasn't his patient, and Finn, now clearly suppressing rage, muttered, "Maybe he should have been," before stepping aside as Steffi and Hope leaned over Liam, offering gentle words of encouragement, "You're so brave, you're going to be okay, just stay with us, for your girls," and Liam stirred, eyelids fluttering, murmuring, "Where am I?" before Bill gently reminded him they'd brought him home after the procedure, and just then, Bill's phone buzzed again and his heart stopped, another message from Grace, this time simpler, "Scan clean. Mass gone. Good margins." And with trembling fingers, Bill turned to the room and whispered, "It's clean. 100% removed," and the floodgates burst open as Hope sobbed, "It's a miracle," and Steffi covered her mouth in disbelief, and Finn, though trying to hold back, whispered, "Medical history was made today," but something in his eyes flickered, a trace of doubt lingering even in victory, and meanwhile, at Forrester Creations, Taylor Hayes and Ridge Forrester sat in the design room trying to process the latest developments, embracing in mutual relief that Steffy was safe and Liam had survived, and Brooke Logan entered, asking for an update, and Ridge admitted that while Steffy had been shaken, she'd hidden it well, and Taylor remarked how the entire ordeal, the brain tumor, the shooting, the fallout with Luna, had pushed them all to the brink, and Ridge coldly said Luna would no longer be a problem, and Taylor, more compassionate, said she wished Luna had gotten help instead of falling apart, and though they were all grateful to Liam for saving Steffy, the grim irony was not lost on any of them. He'd survived a bullet only to be struck down by biology, and Taylor wept as she said Kelly and Beth didn't even realize how little time they might have left with their father, and Brooke, unusually emotional, murmured, "What if we're halfway around the world when Liam leaves us?" When the subject of their Italy trip arose, and Ridge insisted they shouldn't cancel yet, but Brooke's wary glance said it all. None of them were prepared for what might happen next, and Taylor, rising, declared they needed to unite now more than ever, for the sake of their daughters and their granddaughters, and Brooke nodded with uncharacteristic sincerity, saying softly, "We will," and in the design office, Katie Logan arrived to find Electra and Will Spencer deep in conversation, reeling from Luna's breakdown and Liam's alleged bravery. And when Will said he was glad Luna was gone, Electra pointed out that Liam's sacrifice had been the catalyst for ending Luna's chaos, and Katie listened as they praised Liam's heroism, but then her face fell as she whispered, "We're still going to lose him," her voice cracking as she explained the weight Liam must be carrying, the guilt, the fear, the silence, and when Will asked why Liam hadn't told anyone sooner, Katie said it was about dignity, about shielding his daughters from the truth as long as he could, and then Will broke down, saying he wasn't ready to lose his big brother, and Katie held him tightly, both crying, both hoping, and somewhere far from the safety of Spencer Walls or Forrester Silk, Grace Buckingham stared at a burner phone, watching her last message deliver before she powered it off and slipped it into a trash can, because although Liam's scan had come back clean, she knew what they didn't, that the tumor never existed, that the scans had been altered, that the side effects were from synthetic enhancers meant to mimic cognitive decay, and that someone far more dangerous than her was watching every move, someone who'd made it clear this wasn't the end, this was just the beginning. And as Bill stood proudly beside his son, drinking in the miracle of life, and as Steffy and Hope held Liam's hands and promised him he'd be there to watch their daughters grow, and as Finn turned back to the scan with a strange, unsettled feeling clawing at his gut, the truth remained buried beneath layers of lies, manipulation, and betrayal, because this baptism of survival was also a baptism of fire, and the flames were only just beginning to rise.